You can choose the 6x9 for $49.95 or the 9x12 at $89.95. So you see, good taste, it's not expensive at Carpeteria.
Save on all your lighting needs at Halifax. There's a showroom near you in Beverly.
Here is a bulletin from Channel 5 News. Singer Elvis Presley has died in a Memphis, Tennessee hospital. The 45-year-old entertainer apparently died of a respiratory ailment. No other details were given. Repeating, singer Elvis Presley has died at the age of 45. A complete report tonight on Newswatch at 10.
I want to party in the counter Yale. The policeman was in and they began to wail. The band put the yampidoo and began to swing. You should have heard rolls clanking out, terrible sing. Let's rock, let's rock. Everybody holds their block. Won't dance to the ale house rock. Number 4, 7, 7, number 3. You could tell but I ever did see. I'm truly belated company. Come and do Yale House rock with me. Let's rock. Let's rock.
And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show that isn't afraid to unleash a hunk of burning nostalgia on your ass. Assuming you're of a certain age, of which, as far as today's topic is concerned, I am admittedly not, but whether or not you're old enough to remember, I think we can pretty safely say that August 16th, 1977 was a pretty serious day in showbiz history. And of course, this was the day that Elvis Presley died. Maybe. I mean, there is this old Southern guy on my street that seems to have this thing for fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Anyway, as of my making this, just conveniently, we happen to be right on the edge of the 40th anniversary of the King's demise. So this seemed like a good time to take a look at some of the numerous cash-ins on Elvis's name, and some of which were actually going on before he even died. And I like to call this Elvisploitation. Now, I joked a minute ago about Elvis potentially still being alive, but that's actually a really big part of Elvisploitation. I mean, there's been a whole cottage industry built around this assertion that Elvis Presley faked his own death. And it also just so happens that I've already hinted at the most famous or infamous bit of ephemera surrounding this little phenomenon on one of my 1-900 archive episodes.
Is Elvis alive? Judge for yourself by calling the 900 number on your television screen. Hear what could be the incredible Elvis phone call.
I'll come right out and say it. I personally believe that Elvis Presley died, mind, body, and soul, on August 16th, 1977. And strangely enough, it was the book and tape referenced in that ad there that led me to my conclusion. I don't think that was the intent. But I do have it, and I don't normally do book reviews, but I do feel compelled to drop a few thoughts on this one. So, first and foremost, this has got to be one of the most poorly written books I have ever read. The narrative is really inconsistent. The characters, if you will, drop in and out all the time, and a lot of times they're not really properly introduced in the first place, and there's also this tendency towards flowery prose that just makes it that much harder to read. And then on top of that, in the book, there's all these scans of letters and legal documents and stuff, and a few of which I'd be willing to bet were forged. Maybe not this one, but you'll see in a bit. And then also, if you remember back in the first season of Archive, I did an episode on an evangelical anti-rock and roll documentary called Hell's Bells. And the name of the game with that one was just to dump as much information on the viewer as possible, and at times unsubstantiated information. And, the whole idea would just be to dump as much as they can on you to numb you into buying the narrative. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. So anyway, this is a very tangled web, and I think the only chance I have at even halfway explaining all this is to do a little history lesson. But then after that, what I'm sure you'd really like, I'll play a few excerpts from the tape, and this tape is mostly of an alleged interview with Elvis from 1981. And so, as those are playing, I'll have some scans of my own that I've taken of some of the documents in here, and I'll have a few annotations of my own. About half of Is Elvis Alive revolves around author Gail Brewer Giorgio's experiences in writing, releasing, and the aftermath of her 1979 novel, Orion, now out of print, rare, and somewhat valuable. That book is about an extremely Elvis-like singer who fakes his own death and whose life also closely parallels Elvis's. Brewer Giorgio constantly maintains throughout Is Elvis Alive that while Orion was inspired by Elvis's supposed death, it was intended as pure fiction. She claims to not be an Elvis fan, had never owned any of his records, nor had she ever seen more than a few minutes of any of his movies. However, because she believes that her book, Orion, vanished from stores under a mountain of mostly unsubstantiated mysterious occurrences, it inspired her to believe that Elvis was probably not dead and that she needed to get to the bottom of a major conspiracy. My personal conspiracy theory is that A, the author is a big-time closet Elvis fan, and B, Orion, which is periodically excerpted in Is Elvis Alive, just wasn't that good and simply fell out of print, and C, prior to that book's release, the author got exploited by some distant members of Elvis's sphere, leading to the invention of the late 70s, early 80s not-quite country star Orion, and D, the author felt Elvisploitation was too potentially lucrative to give up on, so she wrote this book. And yes, I will get back to that other Orion later.
People ask me all the time where I'm living, and naturally I can't say, but it's a good place to hide. It actually started when I arrived in Hawaii. There's been a lot of times I would like to have changed some things, but I've learned that once something is done, you can't look back. And I think you know that she means as much to me as life itself. And hopefully, the good Lord willing, sometime, fate will be kind to us and I'll see her again.
Now, in that portion of the tape, he refers to a she. Who do you think he means by she there?
I would guess that he is referring to Lisa. One of the things we have to keep in mind.
I'm going to continue my music and give people as much of what they want as I can. I've had people write letters to me. It's nice to know that there are people that are truly concerned about you. And you have friends like this, and when people care about you that much, I mean, you have to do something. And there's a lot of things I would like to do, and there's a lot of music that I would like to attempt.
Now, on that particular portion of the tape, he's talking about how foolish it would be for him to walk back into a lifestyle that he worked so hard to escape from.
That's a key phrase as far as I'm concerned.
You know, that's one thing that has always gotten to me. I mean, there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money off the drug thing, but it's not true. And the fact of the matter is that I haven't even taken a sleeping pill in 3 years.
Well, it's obvious he's incensed by the references to drug abuse. What sort of illnesses did he take drugs for?
He had glaucoma.
I've got to be very careful. I mean, I met a young lady in a supermarket once, and she kept following me. And finally she said, "I almost can't believe it, but I think I know who you are." And I said, "Honey, if you don't tell anybody," I said, "I won't." And there in the supermarket, she started crying. And I said, "Honey, don't you cry." And the tears just started falling down her face. And she put her arms around me. And she said, "I feel I know what you've been through."
Unfortunately, we're not quite done with all this Is Elvis Alive junk quite yet. As if the book, the audio tape, and the 900 number weren't enough, there was a video released too. So, from 1990, this is the Elvis Files, and this is basically a book version of Is Elvis Alive, as you'd expect, albeit minus most of the Orion stuff. And given that we've already discussed most of this, I'm only going to show just a precious few moments from this tape, just to, tie up a few loose ends. And let me give a little technical note here. Whoever owned this before me did not take care of the tape. I think this was immersed in water at some point. And I say that because the inside of the box, my camera probably won't pick it up, but just take my word for it, it's very brown in there. And the tape got damaged, audio and video. And it's in EP mode to boot.
So much larger than life is his talent, fame, and influence that Elvis can never really die. In fact, many believe the king still lives, and his reported death in 1977 was the only safe way for Elvis to retire. Many have suggested that the body on view in the open casket at Elvis's wake was not Elvis Presley at all.
People that went by the body in the coffin were heard to say that does not look like Elvis Presley. They were saying the nose is pugged. Elvis had a very classical nose. They noticed beads of sweat on the body in the coffin, and, you know, dead bodies don't sweat.
His nose looked kind of puggy looking, and his right sideburn was sticking out straight out about an inch. And his hairline looked as if it had been a hairpiece, something glued on somewhere. It just didn't look right. And it seemed like it was sweating on around his hairline. It could have been sweat, it could have been glue, I don't know.
Vernon spelled Elvis's name on the gravestone with 2 A's, even though he officially changed the spelling of his name on his birth certificate from 2 A's to 1 A. Also, Elvis went by 1 A. He signed his contract with 1 A. His marriage license had 1 A. His Army papers had 1 A.
It was New Year's Eve '77 when I took my wife and my son and my nephew down to Graceland. They had just opened up Memory Gardens where Elvis was laid to rest. And we were there for an hour, and we left back for home. I took my son's magnifying glass, put it on the picture, started pulling it away from the picture to get a good visible view of it, and I was just shocked. I could not believe what I saw. My God, I had Elvis Presley sitting in the doorway. And of course, the picture where I first spotted the silhouette in the doorway.
I think this next topic falls in the previously unknown for this show gray area between conspiracy theory and garden variety knockoff. So, as I mentioned, the only true upshot of that Orion book was a manufactured country artist who was dubbed Orion Eckley Darnell, or simply Orion. And a montage just isn't going to cut it here. So, let's do the history lesson thing again. In 1969, Sun Records founder Sam Phillips sold his label to record producer Shelby Singleton, who had just had a #1 hit with Jeannie C. Riley's Harper Valley PTA. Singleton proceeded to reissue as much of Sun's back catalog as possible, which resulted in good, if unspectacular, sales. Looking to make Sun a little more of a commercial concern again, in 1971 or 2, depending on your source, Singleton bought the rights to a single by rockabilly singer Jimmy Ellis, who sounded a lot like Elvis. Oh yeah, and the single was a clunky cover of Elvis's That's All Right. Shortly thereafter, Singleton released the single as an uncredited release to an indifferent public. In late 1977, early 1978, in the wake of the real Elvis's death, Singleton reissued the That's All Right single, again uncredited.
That's all right now, mama. That's all right with you. That's all right now, mama. Just any way you do it, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right now, mama. Any way you do.
In In 1978, Singleton was given a manuscript of the Orion novel. Inspired by the book, Singleton brought in Jimmy Ellis to overdub new vocals on some existing Jerry Lee Lewis recordings, which was released as a rather shady duets album. This led to some speculation as to whether or not these were some unreleased Elvis Presley recordings.
Oh, darling, save that last dance for me.
Oh, I know that the music's fine like sparkling wine. Go and have your fun, laugh and sing. But while we're apart, don't give your heart to anyone.
The book's here. I'm here, which I'm glad of. I wouldn't know of any other place I'd rather be right now than to be here, but I think that's the most important thing.
Given the reaction to the Duets album, Singleton opted to go all out with a real-life incarnation of the Orion character. In 1979, the first official Orion single was released, complete with further references to the book on the label. As best as I can gather, this first single was a cover of the Everly Brothers' Ebony Eyes, which managed to register on the lower reaches of the country charts. At or around the same time, Orion's first album, Reborn, was released, featuring the ever-so-slightly tasteless artwork of a masked Elvis-like figure triumphantly rising from his casket. The offending cover soon got replaced by a picture of a masked Jimmy Ellis with a fresh dye job. Over the next 4 years, a succession of Orion albums and singles came and went from the market. To the best of my research, none of the albums charted, and none of the singles got anywhere near the country top 40, and of course missed the pop charts completely. And honestly, with tunes like this, I can't say I'm too surprised.
I'm gonna put you in my washing machine. I'm gonna wash until you come clean. Now when I get through with you, you're gonna look brand new. Soon you'll see what I mean. You got too much class to be smoking that grass. The streets ain't where you belong. Now you got what it takes to make a beautiful cake, and I wanna slice it alone. So jump into my washing machine. Let me cover you with diamonds.
You know, Jimmy, you're a nice-looking fella. I don't understand why they put the mask on you in the first place.
Well, I guess they didn't think I was so nice looking.
I assume it was a gimmick to draw attention to you.
Right.
Shelby Singleton do that?
He likes that flair, that
mystique.
In 1983, Jimmy Ellis, fed up with the Orion persona, removed his mask during a concert and walked off stage. Ellis never did find any significant success outside of his Elvisisms, but sporadically continued to record and perform independently. Ellis's greatest success came as a business owner with a convenience store and a pawn shop to his name. Sadly, Ellis was killed in a burglary attempt at his pawn shop on December 12, 1998.
In an hour or two, I would whisper I do to my beautiful Ebony eyes. The plane was way overdue.
Given that knockoff albums are such a huge staple of the archive, I have, with massive help from my friend Ben, no relation, over at Classical Gas Emissions, I've put together a montage of some of the worst of the Elvis sound-alikes. And I only had one album of my own to add to the pot, and it was an 8-track. And I stuck it in my deck, and it just wouldn't play. And, oh great, I get to fix another 8-track. So I opened it up, and I found that it had unspooled in the cartridge. And it must have happened a very long time ago, because it was kind of crinkled up, and it had melted in a couple of spots, and, it was a total loss. But before all that happened, I took a scan of it. And if I ever find another copy of that one, I'll have to add it to the pot for a Record Rip-Offs episode. But anyway, without further ado, let's listen to some highlights, or lowlights if you will, from the other Ben's collection.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, just crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, just crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, that said you was high class, well, that was just a lie.
Yeah, you said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, to crocking all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crocking all the time. It's never, come hold me tight. Kiss me, my love, be my survive.
Holy smokes, let's take some life. I never thought this could happen to me. Holy smokes, yeah. Holy smokes, yeah. I got somebody who's gonna be. Oh, what my baby it started in the arms of winter up my head. Look at my heart, don't stop there, but I'm not. I got stuck.
Well, if your baby leaves you, you got a tale to tell. Just take a walk to Lonely Street and Heartbreak Hotel, baby. You be so lonely, baby. You be so lonely. You be so lonely, you could die. Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room for broken-hearted lovers there to cry in the gloom. It'll make you so lonely, baby. It'll make you so lonely. It'll make you so lonely you could die.
It's hard to breathe, my chest as I hear that. Lord have mercy, I'm burning my whole world alive. You can't live behind you like a sweet soul fire. Just a hunger, burning love. Just a hunger, burning love. Just a hunger, burning love.
Going to a party in the county jail. Prison band was there and they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard us knocked out jailbird sing. Let's rock. Everybody, let's rock. Everybody in the whole cell block. Pull us dancing to a jailhouse rock. Well, it's one for the money, two for the show. Really get ready now. Go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoes. Why don't you know anything but stay off of my blue suede shoes? Let's go, cats! Oh, walk the dog. Burn my house and steal my car. Drink my liquor from my old fruit jar. We're caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby. We're caught in a trap.
going as far back as the 1940s and maybe even farther, there have been some slightly shady companies that usually like to advertise in the back of less than reputable magazines and tabloids and comic books, and their whole thing is that they're looking for submissions of song lyrics from the public. So, you send in some lyrics, and like clockwork, you hear back, and they say something to the effect of, "It's great, we love it. Send us usually several $100s, and we'll put it to music and cut a record." So you send them the money, and they, cut a record, and you get either a few copies of it in return, or maybe you wind up on a compilation album or something, or maybe you get a bulk discount and you submit 10 songs and they cut an album, something like that. And this is called the song poem industry. And I've wanted to tackle this here on Archive since day one, and I still intend to do a full proper episode on it someday. But today's final item is just a little too pertinent to today's subject to pass up. So anyway, what I've got here is a compilation album, and this is called A Tribute to Elvis, featuring Ace Mona and the Third Generation. And there's no date on here, but I think this dates to 1978. And there's 15 songs on the album, only 3 of which have anything to do with Elvis whatsoever. And I'd like to close today's episode with excerpts from those 3 pertinent songs. So otherwise, thank you very much for watching.
Our praise to the stars, we hear your guitar. The love we have for Elvis will go far. Elvis, we remember how you moved us. The song was in your soul. Elvis, we cannot forget you. We loved you as our own. From a hard-working truck driver to a movie star, he became rock and roll king, the man of the hour. Elvis Presley, man of the hour. Man of the hour. He is the man of the hour. Big singing, thrill bringing, stands like a tower. Elvis Presley, the man of the hour. He served his country in the army. He did his share in duty well. Then he found an angel named Priscilla. She was the queen, king his belle. He will live on forever, as long as he has fans as faithful as you and me. He is our man of the hour, the king, Elvis Presley. This song is for a friend that we all know, who will never sing again, even though he's gone. The memories are here, and they will never end. We grew up with his music. His music will long remain. Why did you have to go? Why did you leave? Why, when we miss you so, so hard to believe? I know that Elvis is watching. I know that he is near. Even though he's gone, he will always live on. He will always be here. Elvis, I hope you can hear us. Our hearts will always be with you. Elvis, the king we all knew. Why did you have to go?
On October 10th, 1988, between 2:30 and 3 a.m. in the morning, I received a telephone call from a man who identified himself as Elvis Presley. And although my equipment was very, very bad, I managed to take the call.
Anyway, I just got a word. The guy just